The great hall of galactic harmony shimmered, like ice under a twin-sun sky, its crystalline dome catching the glow of 40 nations that still didn't trust each other. Dignitaries draped in silver and moss-colored silks slithered, marched, or floated into their ceremonial seats. From the outside, it might have looked like peace. On the inside, it reeked of competition, dressed in velvet. Commander Silas Rourke adjusted the collar of his worn dress uniform, a sharp contrast to the ornamental armor of the alien delegates. His boots were scuffed, the kind of scuffed that said he'd earned them. He stood at the edge of the stage with a grin carved out of mischief, sipping from a thermos labeled Mom's Coffee, do not touch, as if he weren't about to receive the highest military honor the galaxy could give. The announcer, a palser with translucent skin and 3 vocal cords, trilled the opening. We gather under the stars to commend the human known as Commander Silas of Earth for his decisive intervention during the siege of Calthor 4, wherein minimal life forms were lost and optimal diplomatic conditions restored. Translation. Silas murmured to the diplomat beside him, "I didn't blow everything up. Just enough." The human ambassador, a rigid man with glasses and a policy manual for a personality, winced. "Silas, please." But Silas stepped forward as his name echoed through 1,000 tongues. He saluted, calm as dusk. His voice, when he spoke, was steady and slow, like someone setting a dinner table while a storm loomed in the distance. "Thank you. It's an honor to be recognized by so many proud civilizations," he said. "Though I must admit, I'm not sure I did anything special. I just did what humans do. We showed up, made things complicated, and somehow walked out with fewer body bags than usual." Polite laughter rippled through half the hall. The other half squinted, metaphorically or literally, unsure whether it was a joke or a threat. A Valari noble leaned toward her aide, whispering, "He jokes while discussing loss of life. Curious. Is this a defense mechanism?" "No, my lady," her aide replied. "This is human diplomacy. It comes with sarcasm and carbohydrates." A RAF Corps general, tall and skeletal, with mandibles like broken glass, did not laugh. He'd fought against Silas at Calthor 4 and remembered the strange calm of human strategy, pulling back, luring forward, letting the enemy think they'd won, until suddenly, the ground swallowed their command posts. Rourke had smiled the whole time. Silas continued, voice still casual. "I didn't bring a speech. Hope that's all right. My people don't do well with pomp. We like porch swings and quiet skies. But if there's one thing I learned from the siege, it's this. Sometimes you don't need to be the loudest to be heard." A pause. Then softly. "And sometimes silence is the last warning." That made a few necks stiffen. But the RAF Corps didn't wait for a second warning. With a subtle nod from their war council, a high-velocity plasma round cut through the hall's silence. The shot struck Silas in the chest. Time fractured. His body jerked backward with a sickening, graceful slump. The thermos dropped, rolling end over end across the stage. Gasps swelled into screams. Blood, dark and human and final, spilled across polished crystal. Chaos unfolded with slow-motion horror. Delegates rose, panicked, translating in a dozen tongues that a human had been killed, executed, on a peace stage. The RAF Corps general stepped forward, raising his segmented arms as if to claim responsibility. "Justice," he boomed. "This human-orchestrated tactical genocide masked as mercy. He culled warriors through deception and concealed weaponry. His death is righteous." The galactic chair hesitated. The others didn't. A storm of voices erupted. "Violation of Accord Article 7. You murdered a guest on sacred ground. He was a human. Do you understand what you've just? He manipulated a ceasefire and sabotaged our war councils. They all manipulate. This is just their best liar." The human ambassador stumbled forward to the body, falling to his knees. "Silas," he whispered, lifting the commander's head gently. "You weren't supposed to die today." But Silas Rourke was still breathing. Barely. A cough rattled through his chest. His lips moved. The ambassador leaned close, clutching his comms badge. Silas didn't say, "Help me." He said, "Check your clocks, boys. 15 minutes. Then he exhaled, and didn't inhale again. The ambassador's eyes widened. No. No, no, no. The hall's lights flickered. Somewhere in orbit, a security net blinked out for half a second, unnoticed, except by those who understood the cost of time. The RAF Corps general narrowed his eyes. What did he mean? The Valari noble swallowed. I believe it was a human idiom. But the aide was already shaking his head. No, my lady, that was a countdown. In the private rooms of the Galactic Assembly, ambassadors frantically checked for fleet positions, human transmissions, anything. There was none. Human ships were accounted for, many outside the local system. Earth's planetary governor hadn't even responded. And yet, tension filled the room like a cold fog, as if every being present had suddenly realized something they should have seen earlier. That humans didn't threaten like other species. They didn't snarl. They grinned. And when they grinned while dying, it meant the dying part was planned. A diplomat from the aquatic species, Luthery, whispered, "Why would they allow their hero to fall like this? Unless..." A beat passed. Unless he wasn't the weapon, just the trigger. The RAF Corps laughed. More human theatrics. Let them come. But his laugh did not reach his eyes. At the body, the ambassador stood, trembling. He tapped his badge. "This is Ambassador Doyle. Activate Codex Ember. I repeat, Ember is lit." A pause. Then a quiet voice replied from the other side. "Acknowledged. Commencing final measure. Timer confirmed." The ambassador closed Silas's eyes with a shaking hand. The hall stood in frozen horror, unsure if they'd just witnessed a political assassination or the lighting of a war. Atop the stage, where the blood still shone, the thermos finally tipped onto its side. Coffee. Still warm. A final reminder that the man they killed had been calm, smiling, drinking homebrewed beans while standing in a den of enemies. Someone in the back murmured, "Why didn't he fight back?" The answer came not from Earth, but from a quiet, forgotten corner of the Galactic Archives, where a translated human document lay buried. A quote. "The most dangerous thing about humans isn't how they fight. It's how long they pretend they won't." Somewhere above the planet, the stars began to blink. Not with missiles. Not yet. But as if something enormous had moved into place. Quietly. And all across the galaxy, clocks began to tick. 12 minutes after Silas Rourke's heart stopped, the Galactic Hall remained under lockdown. Dozens of species argued in circular patterns, while others simply watched the sky. The human ambassador, Doyle, hadn't moved from where he'd made the call. His fingers were still slick with Silas's blood, his other hand gripping a datapad as if it might anchor him in time. Most of the galaxy didn't know how humans grieved. Some assumed it involved primal wailing, or vengeance songs, or setting things on fire. The reality was quieter. Humans sat still. They mourned like predators stalked, silent, steady, and with sharpened teeth. On the observation deck of the RAF Corps war cruiser Blightsinger, General Mekvar's mandibles clicked as he watched the stars. "Still no movement," he muttered, peering through high-res optics. "They bluff. They bleed red, not lightning." His communications officer, a multi-eyed Avexi, replied nervously, "Sir, there's a pattern in the fleet logs. Civilian ports across 5 systems are going dark. No messages. No transports leaving. Coincidence? Sir, they're all human-administered planets." The general's lower mandibles twitched. Even if it's true, what can they do in 3 minutes? The Avexi didn't answer. He couldn't. Back at the Galactic Hall, the temperature dropped half a degree. Not from the climate system. From fear. A Dalari noble, long-necked and bioluminescent, stared out the dome's arching skylight. "The stars," she whispered. They're wrong." They weren't blinking. They were disappearing, one by one. Each lost point of light was not a dying star. It was a ship, a shadow, something enormous falling into position. Ambassador Doyle stood now. He wiped his hands on his sleeves, set the bloodied thermos beside Silas's body, and looked out through the dome like a man checking his garden. The RAF Corps general barged forward. "You will explain this." Doyle tilted his head. "Which part?" "The ships. The dark. The human joke. Was this all a threat?" "No," Doyle said. This was a will. What? Silas made peace with Calthor 4. Not because he had to, but because he could. He asked you for words instead of bullets. You gave him neither. You gave him a hole in his chest and a broadcast seen by every human outpost. The RAV Corps stepped closer. We are not intimidated by fleet parades. Good, Doyle said, voice soft. Because this isn't a parade. Above the summit planet, the space around the upper hemisphere seemed to inhale. The light bent. Gravity curled like a blade being unsheathed. And then came the first sound. Jazz. Soft, warm, inexplicable earth jazz. A horn. A piano. A bass line, so casual it could have been background music in a cafe. A transmission spread across every known channel, every frequency the Galactic Assembly used. Not speech. Not war demands. Just a saxophone and Louis Armstrong's voice crooning in an old, cracked recording. What a wonderful world. Panic bloomed. A Volari analyst slammed their hands on a console. They're jamming our signals. With music? A translator machine short-circuited, trying to interpret the emotional tone. Another tried to classify Armstrong as a tactical announcement. The Galactic Chair whispered, "Is this psychological warfare?" Doyle didn't answer. Instead, he stepped onto the center stage where Silas had once stood. He adjusted the microphone, his tie, and said, 15 minutes ago, you assassinated a human commander during a peace ceremony. You violated 32 articles of interstellar law and 72 of basic morality. Humanity, however, has no interest in tribunals. He let that hang. We do have an interest in reminders. The saxophone faded out. On the surface of the moon closest to the summit planet, a single word lit up in ancient human glyphs, projected in red plasma. Remember. It pulsed once, then again, and then across a dozen systems, Earth's oldest satellites, the ones sold to the galaxy for shared defense coordination, shifted their transmission bands. They didn't jam. They sang. They sang lullabies, baseball anthems, national anthems, advert jingles, snippets of radio chatter from trucks crossing America's empty deserts. The RAV Corps general shouted, "Enough. Bring their fleet on screen. Let's see their bark before we swat them down." The fleet came into view. Not a few ships. Not even a battalion. It was a cloud. Human dreadnoughts. Orbital mines. Stealth destroyers drifting like bone among the stars. Each ship sat still, weapons cold. Not a single engine flared. No threat. No commands. Only position. "This is absurd," someone said. They wouldn't start a war over one commander. A dry voice from the Volari side said, "You didn't kill a commander. You killed theirs." Another added, "He wasn't just a hero. He was the proof that humans believed in peace." The Dolari noble asked, "What do they want now?" Doyle smiled. "Oh, you'll know. Just not yet." A RAV Corps warship tried to power up weapons. Nothing happened. Its internal circuits, manufactured through Earth supply contractors, locked. Diagnostics displayed in English. Firmware compromised. System now honoring cooldown period. Please enjoy soft jazz. From the bridge, screams echoed. Then jazz. A human AI voice cheerfully added, "Security override accepted. How about a drink?" Across the galaxy, a pattern unfolded. Power plants shut down. Navigation grids crashed. Gravity stabilizers buckled. Everything built with human parts, even in supposedly alien tech, began speaking in calm female Earth voice tones. "We're experiencing technical difficulties. Please hold." Alien nations found themselves suspended in their own seats, not from weapons, but from human infrastructure. Doyle's voice continued. "You asked why Silas smiled. It's simple. He knew the numbers. He knew where your fleets would be, where your systems depended on human tech, where your translators and fuel injectors and coolant flows were managed by our algorithms." He leaned in closer to the mic, and he knew we could be polite until we couldn't. Silence followed. Then a new message emerged on every screen. A calm, default message. "System update. Terms and conditions have been updated." One RAV Corps warrior whispered, "What does that mean?" Doyle gave a half smile. It means you never read what you signed. Fleets began powering down, not because of choice, but because Earth's silent code was waking up. Years ago, humanity had offered trade, peace, and shared technology. They had engineered systems to be easy, accessible. They had given away operating systems that spoke every galactic tongue and asked only for data-sharing access. No one noticed what Earth had taken in return. Now it was waking. Every colonized moon with a human-built water filter received the same message. Every capital world using Earth medical systems found their oxygen levels adjusting. Not dangerously, not yet, but enough to be noticed. One alien commander, sweating through gills, stared at the message. "Your free trial has expired. Please upgrade to premium." He whispered, "They're not at war with us." The aide beside him asked, "Then what is this?" The commander replied, "A refund." At the Galactic Hall, Doyle closed his folder. Commander Rourke knew what would happen. He believed in peace. He hoped for it. He just didn't trust you with it. "You're bluffing," the RAV Corps general growled. "I'm not even trying," Doyle said. The stars outside pulsed again. Now they were less like stars and more like eyes. Watching. Waiting. The music stopped. Doyle stepped away from the mic, leaving only the whisper of wind through broken protocol. On the summit's comm panel, a countdown began to appear. 5 minutes. The alien governments had 5 minutes to decide if they would admit guilt, surrender certain controls, and apologize publicly, or let the humans continue to unplug the entire galactic machine. Above, the dreadnoughts remained still. A lesson hung in the vacuum. Humanity didn't shoot first. They simply removed what made you breathe. And below, in the cold of the hall, Silas Rourke's body lay under the dome of a galaxy he'd warned. The war hadn't begun. Not yet. But it was breathing on their necks. In orbit above the summit planet, the human dreadnoughts did not move. They simply were a silent wall of obsidian steel and dull lights, unblinking and still. The galaxy stared into that silence and saw its reflection. Not unity, not law, but dependency. Threads pulled tight around every civilization that had once laughed at Earth's primitive beginnings. Now those threads trembled. On board the RAV Corps warship Blightssinger, General Makvar paced like a cage blade, his mandibles ticking as he scrolled through error reports. Engine power was unstable. Atmospheric filters were degraded. External sensors were being overwritten by cheerful messages from Earth's Department of Interstellar Utilities. "Why is this happening?" he growled, stabbing a claw at the nearest display. "Why can't we override the systems?" The Avexi communications officer dared to answer. "Because, sir, they never let us own the routes." The what? Their technology, their networks, their wires. They gave us leaves, pretty lights. But the routes, coding, power control, the architecture, always ran back to them, even when we built over it. Var stared at the blinking text scrolling across the view screen. System paused in honor of Commander Silas Rourke. "Thank you for your patience." He turned and slammed his fist into the wall. It sparked, but nothing responded. The ship wouldn't even let him break it properly. Down on the summit planet, the galactic assembly devolved into chaos. Alliances frayed under pressure. The Valari nobles, always poised, now snapped orders at their aides to restore local autonomy. The Dalari wept in confusion, their bioluminescent skin flickering a funeral hue. A diplomatic aide tried to explain that the human firmware lockdown was not just metaphorical, it was weaponized infrastructure. At the center of it all, Ambassador Doyle sat cross-legged near Silas Rourke's body, calm as a monk watching dominoes fall. He wasn't smiling now. There was no satisfaction in watching dread, only certainty. A drone hovered above, silently recording him. Doyle didn't look at it as he began to speak. His voice fed into every surviving network across the assembly. "We warned you," he said. "Not in threats, not in ships. In how we shook your hands, smiled too wide, and offered you help. We gave you purifiers, translators, energy grids. You never thought to ask what we kept." He paused as the air grew thinner, just slightly. Silas Rourke was a soldier. Yes. But he was also a symbol. not of power, but of restraint. He believed we could build something here, something bigger than blood. He was the line between our patience and your pride. In the background, another RAV-Corps ship darkened completely. Engines cold, hatches locked, comms replaced by elevator music. The Valari ambassador watched in frozen horror. Doyle continued. You killed the line. Now you count the consequences. A hush fell over the hall. Even species that had no mouths, no ears, seemed to feel the words settling in their bones. And, across the galaxy, those consequences unfolded. On Varna's 6, a trade moon hosting 6 alien embassies, every gravity well began shifting erratically. Not violently, just enough to confuse flight patterns, disable traffic control, make ships crash softly into walls. The control systems? Built by Earth. On Throxan, a commerce planet that once mocked human food exports, the water turned bitter. Not poisoned, just salter than expected. The filtration systems began to play a jingle from a long-lost soda company. Drink responsibly. Obey consistently. A KRRN syndicate boss tried to call his weapons cache hidden beneath a city dome. Instead, he received an Earth voicemail recording. This line has been disconnected. Please contact your humanity provider. If this is an emergency, remember, we are the emergency. On a Valari moon, panic technicians attempted to shut down a power station. But the station had rebranded itself overnight. Welcome to Silas Memorial Energy Hub. Please walk softly. The galaxy was not on fire. It was unplugging itself. The realization came like a tide. For centuries, Earth had played the fool. The latecomer. The new species with jokes, stubborn pride, and strange holidays. They had traded laughter for entry, charm for influence. But behind that charm had been wires. Wires that now coiled like tendrils into every heart of the civilized worlds. Aboard the Valari flagship, High Archivist, the Lay studied the data collapse with trembling fingers. How long have they been preparing this? Her aide, a scholar of Earth's early linguistic contracts, whispered, I believe since the moment they were first called primitive. Doyle remained where he was, voice still soft in the global feed. Some of you think we're declaring war. We're not. We're letting you experience what you've built without us. You're not under attack. You're under review. He gestured towards Silas's body, now draped in a human flag. Not militaristic. Just a simple field of dark blue with the image of Earth at its center, small and bright. You killed a man who came to offer peace. You thought his kindness meant weakness. You thought your weapons would work better than our memories. He looked directly at the drone. But humans never forget. And now you will remember too. A sudden ping echoed through every console still operational. A simple message. You killed one. Now count US. At first, no one understood. Then systems began to register names. Millions of names. Scrolling. Slowly. Every name belonged to a human soldier. Every name was linked to coordinates. Status. Positioned. Every one of them was real. Not just soldiers, either engineers, pilots, field medics, farmers, colonists. Hidden among moons, on transport ships, beneath factories that built alien tech but housed human ghosts. And next to each name was one word, active. The Valari gasped as their planetary network began to recognize these embedded signals. Not pings, not attacks, just presence. A presence they had never noticed before. You didn't just kill a commander, Doyle said. You triggered an update. We are everywhere. Not invading. We were invited. You signed the agreements. You welcomed the ships. You never read the fine print. From the back of the hall, someone shouted, "This is extortion." Doyle didn't flinch. No, this is reflection. For the first time, you're seeing the mirror we've held up all along. Outside, a new transmission began, a soft hum of Earth's emergency tones, followed by a message. Galactic infrastructure failure detected. Restore human presence to resume functionality. The RAV-Corps general snarled. You won't control us this way. But his voice was weak. He was looking past Doyle now, up at the stars, where more ships flickered into view. Not firing, Just watching. Then don't be controlled, Doyle said. Fix it yourselves. Purify your own water. Stabilize your own climates. Rebuild your own networks. We're not forcing you to need us. He stood fully now, a man who had come wearing the mask of a bureaucrat, but now spoke with the precision of someone who had waited decades for this moment. We're simply leaving. The room went cold. Not metaphorically. Temperature controls built with human cores dimmed by 3 degrees. Air thinned slightly. The message displayed again. Trial period ended. Final reminder. Do not touch our heroes. Outside, another ship powered down, broadcasting one last line of code. Silas Rourke, 1. Galaxy 0. Ambassador Doyle walked toward the exit of the hall. He passed diplomats of every shape and species, all suddenly unsure if the smallest species in the galaxy had, all along, been the most dangerous. Not for their weapons, but because they had never needed them. As he reached the door, Doyle turned back once. The silence was heavier than any anthem. You thought you'd won because he didn't fight back, he said. But you never understood Silas. He nodded upward, toward the stars where a single ship had broken formation. A medical vessel, simple and slow. His heart stopped at 1400. Yours are just learning how. He left. And above, the fleet remained. No fire. Just counting. The Galactic Council convened in emergency silence. Their table, once gleaming with ceremonial pride, now sat warped by panic. Wires blinking softly underneath, as if even the furniture was unsure whom it served. For once, no one argued about territory or tariffs. No one cared which species had claimed mining rights on the moon of Vetrax. The only topic now was Earth. The holographic projection of Earth's ambassador, Doyle, floated above the center podium, arms folded, expression unreadable. He was in a simple black suit, not military, not ceremonial, just business. And that made it worse. You've unplugged the galaxy, hissed Valari, noble delay, her voice brittle as porcelain. You've taken hostage every system you once helped build. Commerce has collapsed. Air systems are failing. There are children on Trisari who can't breathe. Doyle raised a hand, cutting through her fury like a blade through paper. You misunderstand. We haven't taken anything. We've simply stopped giving. That's the same thing. No, Doyle said calmly. It's a correction. You were warned what would happen if you broke trust with us. You didn't believe it. You thought we'd rage, that we'd hurl fleets and firestorms. But humans don't rage. We adjust. The RAV Corps general, stripped of his ceremonial armor, and now wearing the pale gray of imposed humility, leaned forward. Your commander bled in front of our Senate. You call that trust? I call that sacrifice, Doyle said. And you made the mistake of thinking it was one-sided. The silence twisted. Above the planet, Earth's dreadnoughts still circled, weapons cold, systems idling. They weren't attacking because they didn't need to. They didn't negotiate anymore because there was nothing left to bargain for. And deep inside, every alien at that table knew it. The chair of council, an elderly Zyri with transparent skin and too many hearts, leaned into the microphone, voice weak. Ambassador Doyle, what do you want? The answer came not from Doyle, but from every screen, datapad, and wall terminal in the room. They all flickered simultaneously. Terms and conditions have been updated. The message repeated once, then dissolved into paragraphs, dense human contract language, looping through pages of reactivation clauses, ethical breaches, and dozens of legally binding consequences translated into 98 galactic dialects. Most present couldn't even follow the phrasing. But one clause pulsed in red, pulsed with a sound no one wanted to hear anymore. Earth's old emergency alert tone. Clause 7.3 to B. In the event of deliberate harm to a human peacemaker during a certified summit, Earth reserves the right to revoke all material and technological goodwill contributions without appeal. Should this harm result in death, Earth's status shifts from participant to arbiter. The chair's voice cracked. Arbiter. Doyle nodded once. We get to decide what happens next. A wave of horror rippled through the chamber. The galaxy had given Earth a seat at the table, not a gavel. But the fine print, so easily dismissed for decades, had held the claws the whole time. "We accepted your help in good faith," the Dolari cried. "You can't punish us for one empire's actions." "Silas didn't wear armor for one nation," Doyle replied. "He wore it for all of you. He stood on that stage for every single system that said peace was worth more than conquest. You killed him in front of all of them. And now all of them are watching to see what we'll do about it." A single ping echoed through the chamber. Then another. A quiet drumbeat of consequence. Doyle turned, face grim. "Let me show you what trust actually costs." He waved a hand and brought up the projection of Core's reach, a RAV-Core colony of 3 million. The screen showed children running through a domed park, unaware of what was happening beyond their atmosphere. They depend on imported filters, manufactured by Earth, monitored by Earth, calibrated weekly by human engineers. One sentence, one moment. It felt like a dagger across a throat. A second screen appeared, showing the warship factory orbiting Volari Prime. Docked ships, fighters under construction, every weapon bay lit in red error codes. These crafts use Earth-designed reactors, not because you trusted us, but because they were cheaper, faster, easier. You traded control for convenience. Third screen. The independent trade routes on the edge of the galaxy, now frozen. All navigation hubs offline. Coordinates lost. Ships floating blind between systems. Several carried food. "This one isn't sabotage," Doyle said softly. "It's just disinterest. We don't feel like fixing it." The chamber seethed. Accusations flared. "You're holding civilians hostage." Doyle's voice dropped to a low, emotionless register. "So did you. You just didn't bleed when they did." His eyes scanned the chamber. Not angry, not mocking, but cold. Like someone whose patience had been spent slowly, carefully, until there was nothing left but resolve. "You built your empire on our backbone. You smiled and shook our hands and dismissed us behind closed doors. You called us primitive while you relied on the code we wrote, the parts we soldered, the systems we gave freely. All we ever asked was respect. You thought kindness meant permission." The RAV-Core general stood. "Then what are your terms? Say it. You want revenge, want us to kneel? Just say it." "No," Doyle said. "We want you to admit the truth." "What truth?" "That Earth isn't primitive. That we're not to be tolerated. We're to be included. Equally. Honestly. That you don't get to use us and kill us and pretend we were never more than a clever tool." "And if we don't?" the Volari asked, her voice trembling. The screens shifted again. Every star system lit up. A map of the known galaxy, glowing in blue. And next to each one, a timestamp. "What are those?" someone asked. Doyle answered without inflection. "The last known moment each system functioned without our assistance." He let it sit. Then, the center of the chamber dimmed. A large metal case was wheeled in by a human aide. It had no lock, no engraving, just a single handprint scanner. Doyle approached, placed his palm on the panel, and stepped back. The lid hissed open. Inside lay the metal Silas Rourke had never accepted. The bloodstained thermos. A folded flag. And beneath it, a datapad. Doyle lifted it, then held it out to the chair. "Play it." The video flickered on. Silas Rourke appeared. Tired, smiling. "If you're seeing this," he began, "they probably killed me. Don't worry. I volunteered." Several delegates gasped. Silas kept talking. "I wanted to believe in peace. I really did. But I also believe in humans. I believe in the way we adapt, in the way we survive long after smarter civilizations burn out. So this is my gift to them." He paused. "I knew you'd pull the trigger. I just made sure my death would be the last time you didn't read the manual." He looked into the camera like he was looking into their souls. "They say humans are unpredictable, that we're erratic, violent, too emotional. But we're not. We're just honest. You should have listened when we said we'd remember." The screen cut out. No music this time. No jazz. Just silence. Doyle looked around. "Those are the new terms. You either return Earth to its full standing, acknowledge your mistake, and sign the reparations charter, or Earth pulls out of every system it supports. Permanently. And if we sign? The Dolari asked, barely audible. Doyle nodded. You get the lights back on. The air cleaned. The gravity balanced. We don't want conquest. We want cooperation. But we won't beg for it. A long pause. Then the chair leaned forward. We'll vote. No, Doyle said. You'll decide. Now. And not by vote. By action. The silence fractured like glass. Some stood. Others fell to their knees. A RAV Corps aide burst into sobs. Even among the stubborn, there was the dull ache of realization. Earth had never been the weakest voice. It had been the only voice that never screamed. The chair finally whispered, we agree. The datapads around the chamber lit up with signatures, terms, conditions, reparations. One by one, signed. The chamber lights rose. The systems flickered. Air stabilized. And outside the summit planet, the human dreadnoughts vanished, dispersed, cloaked, gone. No fire. Just silence. Doyle turned away from the podium, stopping only once to speak into a secure channel. It's done. The response came from a familiar voice. Female. Calm. Good. Bring him home. Doyle looked up. In orbit, the medical ship from earlier now moved toward the summit. Quiet, humble. The last ship anyone had noticed. Inside, a pod warmed. A heartbeat resumed. Faint. But human. And rising. Because Earth didn't believe in martyrdom. Earth believed in strategy. Silas Rourke opened his eyes and smiled.